Great. Thank you, Dale. I appreciate those kind words and that great introduction. Just there we go. Perfect. Okay, I just gotta find out how to move each slide. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everyone for the invitation here tonight. I'm very humbled to be here. As Dale said in our amazing introduction, my name is Charles Borg. I'm 31 years old, and as Dale mentioned as well, I'm a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. I joined in January of 2012, and I was unfortunately my career was cut short, and I was released July of 2022, which falls inside through the COVID era due to, and that was the reason I was removed, unfortunately, from the military was due to failure to comply with the vaccine mandate. So the article that I was released under was 5F, unsuitable for further service. And as Dale mentioned as well, with one door closes and chapter ends, another door opens and another new chapter starts. So I am running to be the Conservative candidate for Cowichan Malahat Langford. But before I get ahead of myself, I just want to kind of have a small introduction of myself, starting from kind of how I got influenced into the military. So I'm an immigrant to Canada. I moved here from the Republic of Malta in the Mediterranean in the late 1990s. Originally, my grandparents actually moved to Canada in the 60s. My mother and my aunt were both born in Ontario. I was naturalized. So I was born a Canadian, but born in Malta. But when I came to live in Canada full time in the late 90s, my mother's cousin was actually involved in the cadet organization. And therefore, I got exposed to that program and I joined. And I quickly learned about citizenship, leadership, public speaking. I also got involved in survival training. And as you can tell by these pictures, I quickly fell in love with aviation. I earned my glider pilot scholarship, my glider pilot's license through a scholarship. And I also earned my single engine license through the cadets as well, all free of charge. So as you can tell, I have a couple of pictures here from my cadet days. And on the left-hand side there, that's actually me back in 2019 before COVID started. And I actually took a break from the military to pursue my commercial pilot's license. And but unfortunately, due to COVID, the mandates, and then financial reasons, I had to put it on pause. But till this day, I am a licensed pilot. I love aviation, and I can't wait to get back in the skies. Perfect. And moving on as well. So going through once I finished up with the cadet program, I actually enrolled into the cadet organization as a CIC officer. So that was actually my first trade within the military. So I did sign up in January of 2012 as a CIC officer. I joined as an officer cadet. Quickly going through my training, I also studied at Memorial University. I did those simultaneously, side by side, because in the Canadian Armed Forces, as an officer, you do need to have a university degree. So I went to Memorial University in Newfoundland. I studied the Russian language and literature, and I also studied police studies. So on the right-hand side, I had the opportunity of studying in St. Petersburg in Russia twice, and those were two different pictures from two different times. And then on the left-hand side, that was me at my convocation in 2016. So yeah, very, very amazing experience studying in Russia and just be able to learn the language, the culture, and yeah, it was a very eye-opening experience, especially with everything going on today. I definitely just recommend turning off the mainstream media because they have it so wrong. It's hurt my brain. But let's not get into that. Let's move on through. So when I was going through university, again, I was employed as a Air Force reservist with the cadet organization. I was flying the Air Cadets while studying. Again, I convocated in 2016. So when I finished up with my studies, I wanted to go to the full-time forces. I went at first as a pilot. Unfortunately, even though I was a licensed pilot, I didn't really do very well with some of the testing that they had me go through. A lot of the testing is now computer based, and I'm a little more of a hands-on learner and a performer. So unfortunately, that opportunity didn't pan out. So I went another way. I stayed in the reserves, but I switched from the cadets to what we call the primary reserve, which is essentially like the backup to the full-time soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the Canadian Armed Forces. So because I switched from the cadets to the primary reserve, I had to go through my basic military officer qualification again. I did that in 2017. I did a Reg Force, or the full-time soldiers, sailors, and airmen course. I did it in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu in Quebec. So I do have some kind of action shots here on the right-hand side. That's me in the field on basic training. Bottom left, that's me just kind of doing an action shot when we're in the field again, kind of on a small like pillbox there. And then on the top, due to my cadet experience, I'm very well versed in drill and parade command. So they selected me with no hesitation as the parade commander. So this gentleman was the commander of the Special Operations Force. He was a reviewing officer, and yeah, I was very lucky to get that photo there, and it was a great parade. So I finished up basic training in excuse me, late 2017. And then after my basic training, I had to do something called my trades training. So when I switched over from the cadets, I then switched over to my new trade, which I was an intelligence officer. So from my BMLQ, I went over to Quebec City and I did my BIOC, my Basic Intelligence Officers course. So this is me on course here, basically, with a few pictures saying what the roles of an intelligence officer is, which is a lot of enemy analysis. So a lot of data comes through. We take that data, we transform it into information, and then the information that we use, we then analyze it, and we call that intelligence. And typically, the intelligence role is to study your enemy, your adversary, and we call that the red force. Our friendly, like our ships, soldiers, our airplanes, we call that blue force, our operations assets, and that's not really what we do. So as you can tell in the back, we just have our map. We plot enemy positions. We know their TTPs, their techniques, tactics, and procedures. And essentially, we're supposed to be experts of our enemy, and we advise the commander accordingly. So it was a very eye-opening course. It was about a 4 to 5 month course in Quebec City, and I finished that up in February of or March of 2018. So after BIOC, I then wanted to get some real life military experience. So my first opportunity that I got with the Naval Reserves was actually with the Naval Security team. So it was actually a 3 week deployment to Suva, Fiji. So I did a lot of pre-deployment training for that with a lot of firearms, leadership, and so on. So once I did my pre-deployment training, we then deployed to Fiji. And here's a few pictures from our mission. It was kind of a two-hatter. It's called strategic outreach. So not only did we do the force protection for the ship, the security aspect of making sure our warship is safe in port, but we also got to go out and do some volunteering at hospitals, schools, and stuff like that, really giving community service back. And it was an amazing opportunity. As you can tell with the picture on the right-hand side, that's me with some school children. I was volunteering. We sang songs, played games. It was a real heartwarming experience. And then on the left-hand side, this is the security kind of aspect of that deployment. So on the bottom, that was HMCS Vancouver. That was our Canadian warship that pulled alongside. And then up top, that was me just instructing one of my sailors on kind of key vantage points of what to look for, threats, and so on. So it was an amazing deployment. It was only a short 3 to 4 week stint, but it was a very, again, heartwarming one with my community outreach. But just overall, lots of fun, and I loved being a security guy. So with that being said, the Naval Security team actually wanted to keep me on even more due to my great performance and my great leadership skills. So I actually stayed on for the next mission they had planned, which was to Greece. So as you can tell with the four pictures here, I continue with more firearms training in the right hand corner. Huge firearms advocate. I really do enjoy firearms. I sport shoot myself. I go to the range. And then the other pictures are just highlighting kind of our other aspects to the mission. Now, this one was a little different than the actual outreach. This one was called a RAMP, a rest and maintenance period. So this mission was specifically for relieving crew on board our warship here, the HMCS Ville de Quebec. And by us being there and relieving the crew, we were able to send more Canadian sailors back home for rest and just to visit their families and stuff. So of course, we got a helicopter bottom right corner that was attached to the warship. We got the warship itself. And of course, during my spare time, I got to go and explore Athens, which was an amazing opportunity. The Parthenon was unreal. It was breathtaking. So yeah, like I said, as much as it sucked that I was fired from the military, I really did have some really cool opportunities. But I'm almost quite through my military experience, so we'll get right to the point of, again, why I was invited and honored to speak to you guys. This one will be a very short slide because when I finished up my deployments with the Naval Security team, I then wanted to get a little more intelligence focused. So I went and worked in Victoria, down in the capital, down here on Vancouver Island, at CFB Esquimalt. I joined the Maritime Security Operations Center. I worked there briefly, about 7 to 8 months. We were a watch team that worked with other governmental departments, such as Transport Canada, CBSA, Coast Guard, and essentially our roles together were to monitor commercial shipping entering and exiting Canada, and specifically for the DND, we had to monitor threats to our national defense. And unfortunately, just due to um, the nature of the job. I can't really go into any details, but again, it was a really good eye-opening experience. It really taught me about the intelligence field and just working with other government departments. And I'll leave off with saying it was actually a good lesson because you know if I do get elected, and if we form government, or say when we form government, and I'll have to be working with these departments, and it's not always clean and easy. There's a lot of miscommunication and dropping of the ball. So this happens all the time with big bureaucracy. So it was a very big eye opener and kind of got my feet wet to how the government and government departments communicate and work together. Awesome. So this is kind of I'll put a small little pause on this one here. So a little bit backstory here. So after I left the MSOC, this is when we kind of like my career started kind of getting interesting because after the MSOC, I left there in 2019. I went to pursue my commercial pilot's license, and it was starting to enter 2020. We just went through our first lockdown. Of course, COVID was released in March of 2020. We went through our first 2 weeks to flatten the curve, which didn't last 2 weeks. So I was actually picked up for employment on Operation Laser. Operation Laser was the Canadian Armed Forces contribution to the COVID-19 response by the federal government. And so I was picked up around May to June of 2020, and I was actually paid for about 3 months, full salary, to stay home and do nothing. It really felt like I was on social assistance in a polite way, but I was not employed in a meaningful way. My jaw was to the ground, to the floor, sorry, every day. I also had a part-time job at a local gym, which I'll get to later. So I was double hatting and I was making some good money. So of course I was keeping my mouth shut, but I was just, deep down inside, my conscience was like, how is this a thing? How is this possible? Yeah. So then we got into the summer after 3.5 months of doing nothing. I finally got a hold of like my career manager and my commanding officer and voiced my concerns. Like, I can't keep taking a paycheck for doing nothing. Can you please employ me in a meaningful way? So they actually retasked me from the COVID-19 response, and they actually put me at our local unit, which is where we're at, HMCS Malahat in Victoria on Vancouver Island. And they reassigned me to teach a basic military qualification course. So these are a bunch of non-commissioned members who just enrolled. I was an officer, so I was commissioned, and these people are not commissioned. So it was a shorter time span than what I did. But I was very humbled all the same. It was actually my first time teaching a basic training course, and I had a lot of fun with it. I treated it just like how I want our new soldiers, sailors, and airmen to be trained in the military. So a high drill, dress, and deportment standard, unlike what they're getting now. So this is me getting retasked onto the basic military training, a military qualifications course down in Victoria. Perfect. And I finished that up at the end of summer. And after that, I focused kind of on my part-time gym job, kind of seeing what's next to see where are we going to go into another lockdown? Are we going to go, where are we going from here, right? There's a lot of uncertainty, of course. Other parts of Canada, we're seeing repeater lockdowns like Ontario. Luckily enough, here on Vancouver Island, really it was just the initial 2 week that I think we felt. I think Bonnie Henry came up with another 3 week circuit breaker, something like that. I love the terminology too that they came up with. Is excellent at marketing. Is 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 3 weeks circuit breaker. It was comical, but it wasn't comical to go through it, as you guys probably know yourself. So during my other part-time job with Anytime Fitness, I was in the sales department. So again, I know about marketing, but I definitely did not stand with the lockdowns. It not only did it hurt small to medium-sized businesses. As an intelligence officer, I'm I'm very good at critical thinking and also doing proper research. So just looking at the basics that was well within medical literature and not just Google. But looking at the medical literature, we knew the basics right away. We knew that we were dealing with a virus that had a 99% recovery rate, and to be exact, it was 99.7 for children, 99.5 for adults, and 99.3 for seniors. So let's be friendly and just call it 99. We all had a 99% recovery rate. That was no need for blanket policies to shut down the whole country or even province by province, community by community. And I wasn't having it. As a veteran, as a proud patriot, someone who believes in the Constitution and our charter protected rights, this was definitely an infringement on our Section 7 right to life, liberty, and the security of the person, or in other words, our bodily autonomy. So what I did at Anytime Fitness, once I finished up my military contract, I engaged with our membership. They were fully behind me. I created this sandwich board about knowing your rights, the Constitution. I put information about our MLA and our MP and how to contact them. That everyone should be contacting them, expressing their their concerns and their just unapproval for shutting down businesses. Um, yeah, absolutely. So we stayed open minus the initial 2 week closure. We actually stayed open the whole time. I got to know all the RCMP officers in the community. They were great people. It was very unfortunate. They didn't want to shut us down. They made it very well known, but again, they're just doing their jobs, even though I think that's unacceptable. It is what it is. But again, like a lot of them said, what I can't see can't hurt you. So we shut down for 20 minutes, let them go about their ways, and when we opened our doors again and let people go back to working out. And I'll finish off this slide with saying the reason as well I was very passionate about keeping this gym open was because we're dealing with a medical virus. I'm no denier. I do believe COVID was a real thing. It was a virus. But with a 99% recovery rate, the best thing you can do is making sure that your health is taken care of. So, the media suppressed real life-saving information like therapeutics like hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, or even simple things like taking vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, so on, exercising, living a stress-free life, a healthy, nutritional, balanced diet, things like this. And this is what I was educating our membership about. And they were being very supportive because it was common sense messaging. It wasn't fear tactics like the media was doing. Awesome. So it's moving on. So yeah, so after the initial lockdowns in 2020, I was feeling pretty spiritually and mentally exhausted. Not gonna lie. Like I said, I just saw the destruction of the economy. I saw people losing their jobs, so on and so on. I just needed to kind of get away, but at the same time, I wanted an adventure. So I kind of consulted my career manager with the military, and I was like, hey, everyone's going to be locked down. I'm not going to be missing anything. Now could be a great time to deploy. What do you got for me? And I was lucky enough that they picked me up on a Middle East deployment called Operation Artemis. It was I was gone for about 6 to 7 months, and I was posted with Combined Task Force 150, and it was a task force located at Naval Support Activity Base Bahrain in the Middle East. We operate under combined maritime forces and conduct maritime security operations outside the Arabian Gulf. So it was an amazing deployment, but of course, it comes with a twist. COVID really threw a wrench in my deployment. But for instance, the first time the instant that we landed, we were put down in a 2 week quarantine period. That was very hard on my mental health. I really do enjoy not being on house arrest or being locked up. But again, I wanted to be there, so I followed the rules and went through the hoops and jumps, of course. So after a 2 week quarantine, I was out. We were going through training at the workplace. It was going all so well, and it was fantastic. And then, of course, a colleague of mine tested positive. So I had to go back into quarantine for another 2 weeks. That was pretty difficult. So I did two week quarantines, and then after that, I had a small little break from the whole COVID scene, which was very nice actually. At that time, Bahrain wasn't really locked down. They didn't have any vaccine mandates. They didn't have the vaccine passports. Things were somewhat normal. We didn't have to wear the mask, but when I wasn't on base, when I was out and about in the city, no one's out of sight, out of mind is what we say. Take the face diaper off, and I went about my business. So I got to see the city, which was great, as you can tell by some of the pictures. I got to see camels. I got to see a mosque. I got to see the downtown area. I got to eat some local food and really enjoy and learn about the local culture. It was really was eye-opening. But unfortunately, good things don't last. And I got there at the end of December, and I spent New Year's in Bahrain. January and February were pretty calm. That was good after my 2 week 2 week quarantines, and then enjoyed life. So March things started to change again. And at first, it was actually the country of Bahrain that was starting to bring these new measures in. Not only were mask mandates being brought in for inside and outside, so full time, anytime you're within a public place, you must be masked at all times. So unfortunately, I had to abide by that as much as I didn't like it. They also were one of the first countries in the world to institute a vaccine passport. So that was very interesting because at first the vaccines were not actually available on at NSA Bahrain. The Americans were starting to get vaccinated with the Moderna shots, but unfortunately for the Canadians and the other, like we had 10 Australians part of our contingent, it was just not available quite yet. So throughout March, I started losing a lot of freedoms and privileges in the country because I didn't have a QR code to scan myself into a restaurant, a movie theater, even just going to watch a sports game into an arena or anything like that. I just wasn't permitted due to the country's laws and regulations. And then around April, my Commodore, my the commanding officer of CTF 150, which is actually is displayed there in the bottom left corner, there giving me my medal at the end of the tour. He was able to talk with the American base commander, and he secured some Moderna shots for our task force. Out of the 30 soldiers, sailors, and air personnel that were part of our contingent, I was the only one that said no. I will not be getting vaccinated with this mRNA shot. I'm trying to be politically correct and polite here for you guys. I have my own personal opinions about the substance, of course. So yeah, so I was not. I'm a young, healthy individual. I did my research and not Google. I actually read medical literature, and with the information that I knew about, again, 99% recovery rate, the mRNA gene therapy was not tested on humans. It was not safe nor effective, and there was no like clinical trials, XYZ. I decided it was best for me and my health not to take it, especially where I fell into the range where, as a middle-aged, healthy man, I did not want to, I did not want to get one of the side effects that was well known from the start of these shots, such as myocarditis, pericarditis, and thrombosis. That was actually released through Health Canada data that right off the bat, once the Pfizer and Moderna shots came out, that was right on the bottle and I just didn't want to I don't want to deal with any of those side effects. So I had the right at that point to, it was all voluntary to say no, and I did say no. But unfortunately, of course, by saying no, there comes with consequences. So, like I said, so in later in April, when people were receiving their second dose, the base commander, the American base commander, actually came up with a policy that if you that because so many people are vaccinated, there's no longer a mask mandate on the base, and it was fantastic. It was like heaven on earth. You take the diaper off, I can really breathe fresh air. And but unfortunately, my task force commander, he thought it would be the best interest of everyone for their safety that whoever is unvaccinated must keep their masks on inside and outside. So, of course, being the only person to voluntarily say no, that policy only applied to me. So I also had an issue with that because my medical information was quickly released because, again, I'm a sore thumb sticking out in front of everyone. And yeah, and then I ran into a harassment situation, and that really changed the course of the deployment, and I wanted to get out of there so bad. I was confronted by a senior officer in our contingent, an Australian, who was actually the head of the COVID-19 small team that's attached to our task force, like an unofficial group. They were responsible of kind of updating us of the COVID scene every day. Pretty much, they just went on Google. So they were not experts. They were not trained. They're not medically. They don't have any medical background. They're just from Australia. They didn't have another job for them to do. So they're like, okay, well, you can report on the COVID scene each day. So I ran into this Australian major, And I was outside walking to the washroom when I was working one shift, and I had my mask off, and she just tore me, excuse the language, a new a-hole. And she told me, Borg, if I see you one more time with no mask, I'm going to charge you. I'm going to go right to the Commodore, and I'm going to charge you, and I'm going to make sure you're reprimanded. I'm like, Jeepers, I'm outside. Like, you're really like. So that was it may not sound as traumatic, but of course, with a little, in real life, it really was. It was very traumatic. It really made me angry. I actually went right to my head of department, and then this is when it gets even worse. So now I had a private chat with my head of department, who was also a major in the Navy. We call that a lieutenant commander, and we were talking about it. And he was telling me, he was giving me a little bit of insights. Borg, right now the COVID shot is voluntary. However, though, we are the military, and inoculation can be ordered and is a legal order. And if you do not comply, there could be severe repercussions. And I said, well, sir, with all due respect, I'll tackle that when I get there. And then I guess he didn't really like some of the answers that I was giving him. But long story short, he made the comment of saying, how easy it is if we just got all the troops to pin you down and poke you against your, essentially against my will. And I was just like, I can't believe this is the leadership that I look up to for not only guidance, but for inspiration. And I felt alone, I felt isolated, and I felt like no one really on that task force truly understood the position that I was taking. That this is a choice that by my rights and freedoms, am able to, to make without recourse. So, because again, like, what's a choice if you're going to lose your job or have repercussions? That's called an ultimatum and coercion, and I wasn't standing for that. So, but again, before I get carried away, it was voluntary at the time. But with all the trauma that was built up, I was supposed to be in Bahrain till July of 2021, and I actually wrote a memo to my Commodore requesting an early departure, and I was approved to leave at the end of June. And I was very happy to get home because as 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 much as I cherish my deployment to the Middle East, I loved every minute. COVID made it really really stressful, really traumatic, and a lot of people panicked when there was no really need to panic. Awesome. So when I got home from the Middle East, that's kind of when, like I said, I really kind of got boots on the ground. And for the first time in my life, I truly consider myself to be an activist. I never once really looked highly at protesting. I've always respected people. Like we live in a free and democratic country. It's everyone's rights to peacefully, legally, and safely protest. It just wasn't for me because I really had nothing to protest. I loved Canada. I thought we were the best country in the world, and my life was great. But until I got home, and this is moving into fall of 2021, and this is when vaccine mandates started entering the scene. And of course, the military was one of the last institutions to hop on board. So this is again in the fall. I attended multiple freedom protests down at the legislature in Victoria. This is obviously expressing my position that I'm like strongly against not only this vaccine mandates, but the vaccine passports. For numerous months, my wife and I, some of my friends, not many, but some of my friends and other colleagues, we couldn't go to restaurants. We couldn't go out to restaurants, nightlife, and just so on. It was very restrictive, and there really was no need, especially when they had rules like you can go to a restaurant if you're vaccinated, you must be wearing a mask, but the minute you sit down, you can take your mask off, right? So where is the science behind these policies, right? So I think the biggest issue I want to just make sure I'm clear about is I never really had an issue with we're dealing with a virus. I had an issue with the policies that were being enforced by our government and by our leadership because they were not science based and they really did not make any sense. So in this slide here, of course, I'm expressing myself. I got my flag on my fishing pole in front of the Victoria Legislature. My sign, again, being against vaccine passports. I really do believe it's a segregation paper. And of course, I blouse my pants and put my boots on because I'm a proud veteran. And on the right hand side there, I protested many times with former Newfoundland Premier Brian Peckford. He's the last signatory of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it was an absolute honor to meet him. Awesome. So later on in the fall, specifically towards the end of October into November, this is when the Canadian Armed Forces started rolling out their vaccine directive. And it was mandated on me that an official order was released by the Chief of Defense Staff, who is now retiring at the end of this summer, General Wayne Eyre. He ordered, sorry, everyone to get 2 shots of the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine. And what we see on the screen is actually my memo to up to my chain of command to the general requesting an exemption from this directive, from this order. I'm not going to read it all out loud by no means. I can always send you a copy if you guys wish to have it. But just to summarize it, again, my position was not a religious exemption. It was actually more towards the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and just our human rights in general. So that's what I leaned on. And the reason I chose this route is because when I was in Bahrain, I actually, through the trauma, rediscovered my faith, and once I entertained and slowly stepped into becoming a Christian again. And so at first, when they asked me to get vaccinated, and I said no, it was voluntary. But they kind of asked me why, and I kind of used my religious beliefs as kind of a backup, saying, do the XYZ. I don't feel comfortable receiving this right now, and where it's voluntary, I'll wait. And they kind of told me that was a weak position. They didn't believe that I was even a Christian or I was religious. And I just didn't think by submitting a religious exemption that it would actually stand on a leg. So by citing the Constitution, where there is case law in standing up against forced inoculation in the military, I thought I had a case. And unfortunately, my exemption was denied. And instead of doing the proper route, which is to actually charge me under the National Defense Act, because again, they are correct, being ordered to receive to be inoculated is actually a legal order in the military. But if one refuses, that is disobeying a direct order. So that is actually breaking the law, and I should have been charged, but I wasn't charged. Why I wasn't charged is because the federal government and General Wayne Eyre knew that if I was charged, that I can elect a court martial and go to stand in front of a tribunal and explain myself why I refused to obey this order. And due to case law, I would have likely won my position, would have won that explanation in the case, because again, due to case law, soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the past have actually refused inoculation. They were charged and they won due to them saying that, due to the charter, due to the Constitution, due to religious reasons, they can actually say no as long as it's within, a reasonable framework, which I do believe, because again, we all knew that these were new experimental vaccines. They are only emergency approved. Even if they got full approval right now, they have never been tested on humans in a proper clinical trial, and they carried adverse effects. So, but long story short, I was denied my exemption. So instead of charging me under the National Defense Act, they then took a different route, which I was very torturous in my opinion. It's called remedial measures. And usually what happens in remedial measures is when someone is deficient on the job. So for instance, maybe there's a process on the job that I'm just not getting. I keep messing up and we have step 2 or so on and so on. My supervisor should be sitting down with me and counseling me on how I can improve and overcome my deficiency. So it was very eye-opening and very disheartening for them to say that I had a deficiency, when really I was making my constitutionally protected right to my choice what to put into my body with my bodily autonomy. And I should have maybe prefaced earlier as well, I received all my other vaccines to deploy to the Middle East and deploy to Fiji and to the Greece. So I had no problems with receiving vaccinations, but those were the common ones that had decades of scientific literature to back it up, decades of safety testing that was, that made me feel confident these are, proven not only to work, but to be safe and effective. And the adverse effects were very low versus these mRNA shots. So with that said, I started my remedial measures. It was a 7 to 8 month process. So it was probably the worst 8 to 9 months of my life. It was the longest firing process I've ever been through. I can't get over how it took 8 months to fire an employee. I didn't grieve any of the decisions, because I have zero trust in the grievance system with the military. So essentially, just a little bit of context. Sorry, in the Canadian Armed Forces, we're not unionized. So once a member has a grievance or just does not agree with the decision being made, we must file something called a grievance. And again, the grievance goes to a review board, which is made up by civilians. But these grievances take years to process. And I'll even get to that a little later about my one grievance that I did actually submit. So throughout the whole the whole remedial measures process, I did not submit one grievance because I had no trust in the system. Plus, even if I submitted it, I still probably would be terminated because by the time they actually get to it and look to it, it's a little too late. So, with that being said, I really believe that legal action was the only way forward. So this is a picture with me with some other veterans still active and retired. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm actually the only one that was 5F'd, so actually kicked out due to refusing the vaccine. There are about two or three people that just quit. We call that just voluntary release. They just didn't want to deal with the firings. They're just like, I'm out of here, I'm done. So they actually just VR'd. And other ones actually survived the firing process and are still serving. I mean, there's about two or three in there right now. So yeah, so that's in the middle in the blue shirt. That's Catherine Christensen. She's the founder of Valor Law, and there is over 300 of us. Trying to see the exact amount. I think it's 330. 330, yes, sorry. So there's 330 of us in our mass tort. We're not a class action. We are a mass tort. And right now we are battling with the Crown lawyer to try and get dates arranged for depositions. The government, no surprise, has been stalling and really pushing this as long as it can go. So we finally have a case manager assigned to our case and a judge. And the defendant, the Crown lawyer, actually filed to dismiss the case now. So we have to wait till the end of August for Catherine and the Crown lawyer to meet up and basically dispute that this is not moot. This is still ongoing because not only have people been fired, the vaccine directive for the Canadian Armed Forces is still in effect. And to my best knowledge, I believe the military, the Canadian Armed Forces, is the only federal government institution to still have a vaccine mandate, which is an absolute shame, especially with our recruitment and retention numbers being in such hurting shape. So absolutely, that was I can't remember the date. Sorry, that I believe that was in February of 2023 when kind of the lawsuit was starting to really kick off. We were filing our statement of claim, and it was a great honor to meet Catherine and the other members. As we kind of started this battle of that we chose to depict with the government due to their poor policy. So I want to kind of comment a little bit on the statement of claim itself. We're actually not suing the government for the substance, for the mRNA shots and making them mandating the military to take the shots because it would be instantly thrown out. Because as I mentioned, ordering inoculation in the military is actually legal. It's under the National Defense Act. So what we're suing against is the abuse of power aspect. Because again, instead of charging us for refusing to get inoculated and then us electing court martial and standing trial to prove why or to explain why we didn't take the shots, they went the remedial measures way, which is completely against policy and the law, and that's what we're going afterwards. And we have a lot of evidence. I highly recommend going on YouTube and searching up Catherine Christensen's presentation at the National Citizens Inquiry. It's a very compelling, touching story. A lot of us on the mass tort actually cried watching it. I was one of them. It was very emotional because she really beautifully explained how we felt and the poor leadership that was taken and just the bullying. Yeah, just again, the trauma it caused on these people. We had one soldier who stood at attention in the middle of the winter in New Brunswick in minus 30 to 40 weather. He lost about 30 pounds of muscle and he couldn't continue after 2 months, so he tapped out. We had a numerous amount of females who were pregnant, breastfeeding, that were ordered to vaccinate. And their exemptions were refused. There was just no. We always have a duty to accommodate, and there was absolutely no accommodation. So that was, again, this is the biggest thing that we're going after them, is that they did not respect us and they did not accommodate us. And the small backstory that I missed, sorry, is when I was going through this process during my firing process, sorry, I knew this was coming thanks to my Bahrain mission and my commander, my head of department, sorry, telling me that the mandates are coming, especially for military. So I made sure when I got home that I got a remote position with the military. So I was actually working remote from 2022 into 2023. So I finished up my remote gig in April 1st of 2023. So all of this helped with the lawsuit because, again, why are you terminating me if I'm working from home? It was the military that forced me to actually go down to the military building to receive the remedial measures and the slaps on hand. So I was seeing none of my colleagues until they ordered me to come down to the base, which was shocking. Awesome. So again, yeah. So throughout 2023, throughout 2022, when I was being fired, I was released then officially after the 8 months of remedial measures on July of 2022. So with one door closed, another one opens. And not only did I just want to be an activist, I actually wanted to really try and bring some change in the community. I really wanted to get into politics because I really believe that I'm a confident leader and I do well. I'm a good public speaker and I care about people, about community, and real middle class issues. So I was inspired by some close supporters to actually run for municipal council. I live in North Cowichan, in the municipality of North Cowichan. So in the summer of 2022, I put my paperwork in, and then in fall of 2022, BC had a local general election, and I ran for councillor for North Cowichan. So this was on the right-hand side. This is a picture at a meet and greet, kind of an open forum we had for the three mayoral candidates, and I believe we had 13 councillor candidates. So it was quite a big group. And then on the left-hand side, I just wanted to put this funny picture of Borg. If anyone's a Star Trek fan, it's kind of an alien species. So someone had a couple too many drinks at one night and put a resistance is futile sign in front of my campaign sign. And we all got a good kick out of that, a good laugh, because again, Borg, the slogan is resistance is futile. So might as well just vote for me that way, right? Okay, awesome. So unfortunately, a young conservative male Christian in a NDP stronghold didn't really do very well. So I did not get elected, unfortunately. But again, with another door closed, another one opens. But before I get ahead of myself, sorry, I think I skipped. I just had a quick video here I just wanted to play, just of me in action. This was my closing remarks at one of our town halls. Thank you very much for tonight's invitation. I would like to close by capitalizing on my pro-middle class message. We must respect and listen to our taxpayers. I will do just that in elected council. I intend to address middle class issues like high taxation, low housing supply, and the lack of support to current and future entrepreneurs. I will strongly advocate to the council to tackle the escalating crime and drug problems being witnessed in our municipality. Council must focus on raising the standard of living, or else this problem will continue to grow out of control like we're seeing in Vancouver. Council must work closely with property owners and contractors to reduce red tape and approve permits in a more timely and efficient manner. Our youth are losing sight of home ownership, and this is such an important aspect to achieving purpose, stability, and control over one's life. I want to hear from you, the taxpayers in North Cowichan. I'm working hard to earn your trust. I believe this trust must be earned through transparency, honesty, and answering all questions. So if there are any unanswered questions, please visit my website at charlesfordmunicipalcouncil.com or email me at charlesfordmunicipalcouncil@gmail.com. We need a council that is honest and accountable, not a council that banters amongst themselves and residents over social media, or a council that chooses to stay silent on hot topic questions. I am proud to say that is exactly what I have been doing, answering all questions in a timely, honest, and respectful manner. Come October 15th, please vote Charles Borg for councillor so I can help restore strong and effective leadership at Municipal Hall. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. So that's kind of a closing remarks at one of the town halls. Just kind of getting into large crowds and kind of getting over the butterflies and just getting confident back in my feet again in public speaking. So I've come a long way since then. I know I kind of messed up a couple times and I'm still scripted at that point, and I'm proud to say I'm almost off the script. I'm almost off the script. And but each time you speak in front of someone, you get more confident, and you just progress, and that's the name of getting better, right? So at the same time, as heartbreaking as it was that I wasn't elected, I'm happy I didn't come last place, which is kind of a win. But I'm kind of blessed that I didn't get elected, because towards the end, I quickly realized that municipal politics wasn't really for me. I've always been federal and public sector worker. I love this country. I know the federal system better than municipal. And though as much as I respect it, because it's the true grassroots level of leadership, of governance, is the municipal first. Like I said, I was more federally and provincially focused. So excuse me. So at that time, when that door closed in late 2022, moving into 2023, I got very involved with the Conservative Party of British Columbia, and as well with the Conservative Party of Canada. With regards to the provincial party, I really became motivated and inspired when John Rustad came over to the party from the BC Liberals at the time. He was kicked out just due to his ideology, and I think that was absolutely wrong, because it kind of, I think that's why I look up to the man, is because he went through kind of the same experience that I did. He has morals, he has values, and he's a principled conservative, and because of that, he was kicked out of the party. So he became premier, and I happily joined his party. I'm a card carrying member, and that's him on the left hand side. This is at the 2023 AGM. Next to him is Marina Sapovnikov. She is actually a medical doctor, and she is now suffering, or she had suffered, sorry, under Bill 36, which is the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which forces inoculation on all our medical workers, doctors, nurses, and paramedics, frontline workers, and employees as well in hospitals. So she was lucky, though. She survived because she worked in a private clinic, but she recently retired because she's been selected as the Conservative Party of BC candidate for Wanda Fuka Malahat. And I'm happy to say I'm a friend of hers. I'm very proud of her. She's doing great work. Next to me is Mr. Reid Ellie. He was our last Conservative MP for the Cowichan area. At the time, the riding was called Nanaimo, North Cowichan. So he was a Conservative MP. He retired in mid 2000s. Next to him is Joyce Benson. She was a North Cowichan councillor, very active in the provincial Conservative Party and very active in the federal Conservative Party for the area as well. And next to her is Mr. John Corey. He is the candidate for Cowichan Valley for this upcoming provincial election, and he was also a previous North Cowichan councillor as well. So I'm really humbled and honored to be part of the party. I had many talks with John Rustad. He is a brilliant man. I look very much up to him. He actually asked me to run with the party at first, and I respectfully declined, only because, again, my experience and my heart is in federal politics, and I think that's where I can best help the country. So with that being said as well, in January of 2023, shortly after Pierre Poilievre took leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada, I joined up. I joined up. I purchased a membership. I got involved with the board of directors. I actually became the vice president for the Cowichan Malahat Langford electoral district. And I helped organize the very successful Pierre Poilievre rally in Duncan. We were not expecting the turnout that we did. We got over 2,000 attendees. And usually the reaction from the left, from the Liberals, and from the NDPs was hilarious. They're accusing us of bussing people in. Then they're going after us because we broke the fire code. We went over the limit, and it was just silly banter. But it was super funny because they're clearly worried, and they clearly noticed how successful the rally was. So we're happy that we brought him over to Duncan. I got to have a good quality chat with them. At that point in time, I knew I was running to be the candidate. So I expressed that to him and how I'm excited to work with him in Ottawa. And then on the right-hand side, that's just me doing some community outreach, which I continue to do many times. I'm all over the place in the communities, and I'm happy to meet people and talk to them about their concerns. So I'm quickly finishing up just kind of my short presentation here, and I hope I kind of made a good picture for everyone. But this is I just wanted to play this next video here. This is me May the 4th of this year. This was at our last AGM. This is for the Federal Conservative Party AGM. And at this point in time, I do have my application in. It's waiting for final approval. There is another gentleman who also has his application in, waiting for final approval. and now there's a third person that just joined the race. So there's three of us, and we're waiting to close any moment. And what this closing means is that each riding association gets ordered from national that you guys will be closed. And what that means is that the membership goes into a vote to choose for the official candidate. So any day now, we are waiting to be closed, and we're really kind of expecting June, to tell you the truth. June we should close, and then by July or August we should have an official candidate selected. So I just kind of wanted to play this quick video. Hopefully you guys can pick up that I haven't been improving. You know, I still have notes, but at the same time, I'm definitely going noteless each time I speak. And yeah, I just hope you guys enjoy this one too. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charles Borg. I stand before you as a proud veteran, a patriot, and a concerned citizen of this great nation. I am here to humbly ask for your support in my bid to become your conservative candidate and ultimately your next conservative member of Parliament, Cowichan Malahat Langford. For over a decade, I had the privilege of serving our country in the Canadian Armed Forces. In that time, I've traveled all around the world and I've contributed in many international peacetime support operations. I know firsthand the importance of strategic planning, strong and effective communication, and most importantly, putting people first. I stand ready to apply those skills and experiences to serve you, the hardworking citizens of this constituency. My commitment to honesty, trustworthiness, and efficiency stems from a deep-rooted belief in the values that make our country one of the best in the world. But make no mistake, our beloved Canada is facing challenges unlike we've ever seen before. After 9 years of Justin Trudeau and his NDP Liberal government, our once prosperous nation is struggling. Our standard of living has plummeted, and the fabric of our society is frayed at the seams. Just look around you. The dream of home ownership has become an unattainable fantasy for far too many. Young adults find themselves trapped in a cycle of uncertainty, unable to start families or build futures of their own. And the heartbreaking sight of homelessness, drug addiction, and crime has become all too common on our streets. But let me be clear, this is not the Canada we know and love. This is a result of failed policies and wacko leadership. Take the carbon tax. It is suffocating our economy and driving up the cost of living for hard-working Canadians. Meanwhile, billions of dollars of wasted, misguided initiatives and people's basic needs go unmet. It's time for change. It is time for common sense to prevail. As your conservative candidate, I pledge to fight for real solutions to the issues we are facing for our communities and our country. We will tackle the affordability crisis head on by incentivizing home development and slashing unnecessary spending. We will aim to reclaim and restore what remains of our immigration framework. The overwhelming influx of immigrants is rendering home ownership nearly impossible and eroding our cultural identity and lifestyle. And let me be clear, I am not anti-immigration as I am an immigrant myself, but Pierre Poilievre has stated it clear, that we must link our immigration targets with our housing development and with our job availability. That is the way it was, and that is the way it should be. We will prioritize mental health and rehabilitation services over enabling drug addiction with tax-funded toxic drugs. And most importantly, we will safeguard the Constitution and defend our rights and freedoms. We will reject any form of censorship and fight back against any restriction on our God-given freedoms. My friends, there is hope on the horizon. By granting me the honor of being your official candidate, I will fight alongside Pierre Poilievre and his common sense government to restore our nation to its former glory, so we can once again have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Thank you all for attending the AGM today. Our candidate selection process will hopefully come to an end soon, and when that time comes, please vote Charles Borg. Have me be your voice in Ottawa. I will not let you down. Thank you so much for coming today. God bless Canada and true north, strong and free. Thank you. Awesome. So that was my kind of my introductory speech at the AGM, just kind of giving myself a little bit about myself. I answer some questions later afterwards. I don't have any video footage of that. And that brings me to the last bit of my presentation. If anyone lives between Langford up to Chemainus, out west to Lake Cowichan or Port Renfrew, and you like what I had to say today, you agree with my ideology, you agree with conservatism and conserving what made Canada such a great country and just our morals, our values, and our principles, and you would like to support me with my campaign, I strongly encourage you to become a member of the Conservative Party of Canada. You can go to that website down there, cmlconservative.ca, or even just type in Google Conservative Party of Canada. You can click to join the CPC and purchase a membership. Specifically, to support me, you do need to live within the Cowichan Malahat Langford riding. I would really, truly appreciate your support. That'd be the best gift in the world. But like I said, there's other candidates like-minded like myself. So if you don't live in CML, I highly recommend just doing a quick search on who the applicants are within your riding association. Vet them to see if you can support them due to their ideologies and what they wish to carry out. Of course, we do have party policy that sews us together. But at the same time, we're all individuals, and we have difference of opinions. But it's good to meet up with these people, get their opinions, see what they want to do, what they want to focus on, and if you can support them either financially, through door knocking, volunteering, it'd be a huge help. So again, if you don't live in my area, the least I can ask, and I would have greatly appreciate it, if you are on social media, feel free to give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, or X, or commonly known as Twitter. I'm like I said, I'm very active. I always give updates to my supporters of what I'm doing, where I'm at in the community. And like I said, I'm really hoping that Cowichan Malahat Langford closes soon, so our membership gets to choose the candidate. And I stand a very good chance of winning candidacy. And it'll be the biggest honor of my life to represent the great people of Cowichan Malahat Langford in Ottawa. So with that, I was not expecting to go right to 8 o'clock. I do apologize about that, but that concludes kind of what I had to say. I hope I kind of covered an umbrella, a little bit about me, what I've done in the military, what happens to me, how I relate to your organization, and kind of what I'm doing now to really keep Canada strong and free as we all say it is, which I like to think it still is. But
Thank you, Charles. I think just in interest of time, because I did say there would be no questions, we'll finish at 8. If someone has, if you are willing to stay, maybe just for one
okay.
question, if someone has a
Oh,
burning
absolutely.
question. If not, I will turn things over to Phil, and because I know he wants to say some closing remarks. Yeah, and thank you very much for what you've shared with us, Charles. This is a group of people that know that it has been a hard road for many of us. Maybe we didn't all go quite through what you did, but we really appreciate the strength in numbers, and we're stronger together, as they say. It's so true. Does anyone have a burning question? Maybe what I could do is, I know I have a few questions about the legal aspect, but maybe we could keep in touch by email, Charles, and then we can share with the team what's happening. You said that, the next step for you is that your lawyer is meeting with the Crown in August. So it'd be interesting to hear what happens after that. And maybe with that, I'll just turn things over to Phil, who's joined us, Phil, our president, because I believe he wants to make a couple of remarks.
Thanks, Dale. And before I do that, I just want to thank you, Charles, for joining us tonight. I mean, it's so inspiring to hear, what you've gone through and how you went through it all with, courage and determination. Um, I think it's helpful for us to remind ourselves that so many other people have gone through what we've gone through in all different spheres of society. So, it was kind of really interesting to hear about how that the COVID groupthink played out in the military. We all experienced it in our workplaces. Most of us are provincial public servants, but we definitely have colleagues from other organizations, whether it's the municipal, provincial, federal levels. And actually, I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, we're like a not-for-profit society for public servants who are based in BC in general, regardless of what government organization they've worked for, so provincial, municipal, federal. So I invite you to become a member of our society if you believe in what we stand for, which is medical privacy and bodily autonomy for all public servants and all British Columbians. Um, but I was kind of just interested that now that you've transitioned out of the public service in the military and looking towards public service in the world of politics. You know, in your conversations with people, whether it's people that you've worked with in the military, or that you're meeting now kind of on the campaign trail, what sort of feedback are you getting from people? You've been very outspoken, I guess you could say, from the beginning about your stance on these issues, and it must have been tough, certainly at the beginning, but has there been a change? Are you getting you know, positive feedback? Or you see people kind of changing their minds about things, or is it just as difficult as it was at the beginning? What's it been like for you?
You know, lately it's very positive actually, and I'm really happy. Finally, some positivity and some good feedback. During the 2022 municipal campaign, it was very negative. You know, of course, with my position and a lot of people within the small geographical location that the municipality covers just did not agree with me. They were very pro mandates. They believed that this vaccine was safe and effective as the government said it was, as Bonnie Henry says it is. So it was very like, yeah, there was a small pocket of supporters, of course, but the overwhelming did support the mandates and the vaccine passports and so on, right? I saw a shift in 2023, which was very interesting. It was a very slow shift. So really, I only started seeing the change towards the last bit of 2023, but into 2024, now that I'm very active campaigning for my candidacy, I'm out talking to people. It's night and day. It really is, and I'm not just you know, I'm talking about a range of topics. It's not just specifically about mandates or vaccine passports or whatever. That is a small component of it, but just people are a lot more open-minded and now understand that the government does not tell the truth. Like they purposely lied to the people. They agree that that happened, and they're just open-minded to hearing a counter narrative to what the government has been saying this whole time. So again, like I do still talk about the mandates. One thing I didn't touch on, which I totally agree, is the level of division that these mandates and these vaccine passports, sorry, have brought into society. You know, pitting mask versus anti-masker, you know, vaccine versus anti-vaxxer, and that's what this NDP Liberal government really knows how to do is categorize and group people and pin them against each other. And I truly do believe it's a nefarious attempt to just maintain order and control. And I want the Conservative Party and myself. We really want to unite the country and allow individuality and you to have individual freedom, not only over your body but over your life. Pierre Poilievre says it all the time. He's going to remove the gatekeepers. I'm going to hold him to account when I get elected because I truly believe that's a great message is that you, the individual, are a free, sovereign Canadian and should have full autonomy over your body and over your life, as the Charter, you know, explicitly says. You know, Section 7, life, liberty, and the security of the person. You are in control of your life and your family's life. So I would to be direct to your question, absolutely, it's a lot easier to talk about it now. Now, again, some things have changed in 2022. Of course, our economy is well within a recession. I believe we're actually in a silent depression. That's how bad our economy is doing. Our fiscal responsibility is completely out the window. Mr. Trudeau is printing so much money. We're in so much debt. And again, the money is not going to the people. It's mostly going overseas into other weak and poor initiatives. And people are just really sick and tired of the government in general. So it's a lot easier to talk to people now that the masses are disgruntled and are really pissed off with the way the country is being run. And so it's just a lot easier to bring up not only just economy, livelihood, standard of living, but also to talk about the last 3 to 4 years with mandates, lockdowns, and so on. So yeah, no, I definitely say it's very positive. I believe our time now, especially in BC, is here. I believe a blue wave is here provincially and federally. And I think a lot of people are waking up to conservatism and the Conservative Party of British Columbia and Canada. Now, we are not affiliated together. I just want to preface that. We are two different parties. But again, we do share the same ideology, and people are very receptive to that. They want individual freedom, They want to live in a country that's stable and a province that's stable financially, economically, and they just want to live their lives and be left alone, unlike what we're experiencing right now.
Well, Charles, on behalf of all of us, the BCPS Employees for Freedom members, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And I think your message, your experience, resonates with a lot of us, and so really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Phil. I really appreciate the invitation. And right after I'm done, I will be joining your organization. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you.